Midway along life's journey, I woke to find myself in a dark wood. Dante Alighieri.
You're listening to the Coached Podcast, hosted by Coach Karen Eldad, world-class personal and executive coach. It's your show. We answer your questions, and you get coached on any issue that concerns you. Here's Coach Karen.
Hey, superstars, welcome back. We are here, finally, for a new season of the Coached Podcast, the show where you call in with your questions, and I, a personal and executive coach, do my best to serve you answers and hope and respite. This season is dedicated entirely to one type of pivot, the midlife crisis. And in this vein, how to navigate all of life's big changes if you don't happen to be here in this age bracket with us, including, pardon my French, shitstorms. Your questions have poured in over the last couple of months. I've taken note of every single one of them, and we cannot wait to get right to answering them for you. Plus a couple of friends who are going to join me to help. Before we jump in, I've been away for almost an entire year. Did you miss me? I hope so. We've taken this up a notch, and my business has reached new heights in 2022. We've gone from a team of 2 people to a team of 5 that is still growing, and we're setting off 2023 with our most masterful coaching mastermind experience yet, Enthusiasm Academy. What can I say? I've been very busy, and that's why the absence. Of course, if you're here for the first time, we welcome you with all of our hearts. But if you have missed us, that's why we've taken an entire year off. It's because we were in growth mode for the business. And that has in many ways been absolutely fantastic, but in also many ways, it has been not easy and not smooth. This is the truth of all transitions, and that's why I offer it as the opener to this season. It's what the midlife crisis and this season dedicated to it is all about. It's a mini series that is entirely dedicated to this transition, and with each episode, we're going to answer questions about transitions that have come in that will essentially help you to navigate these and to get through them to the other side, even though the ride itself is probably going to be rough. Spoiler alert, again, you don't need to be middle-aged to listen in. You just have to be human and alive. Although the midlife crisis is an especially acute transition, many changes are being undergone by all of us all the time. Heck, I think the whole world is faced right now with a change so big it might be dubbed the global midlife crisis as we speak. So if you're not in this age bracket, join this podcast mini-series as guideposts for whatever transition you're faced with at the moment. I assure you, some caller is called in with something pretty similar to what you're going through. No matter what change or transition you're faced with, it will shake you up, but it can also wake you up. And in fact, I believe that that's essentially where we're going with all of this. I'd like to offer everyone out there an entree into not just a thriving on the other side, but an awakening on the other side. Now, why the midlife crisis? Well, first of all, I just turned 45. But not just because I am in this transition am I interested in talking about it. It's because nobody else does. Even with its ubiquity, the midlife crisis isn't something that's readily discussed, not even in self-help books, certainly not at dinner parties. Why? I think it's mainly because we don't like change. We are afraid to talk about change. And talking about a massive change like this one, we like it even less because it makes us extremely vulnerable. We have to admit that we are 45 or 50. And let me be honest with you. You know how I usually hear people are 50? They say the words, I don't feel 50. I don't really understand that phrase, to be honest with you, because that's like saying I don't feel 5'5". But here we are. And so our culture winds up dismissing the process of midlife in its entirety. And that means that the onset of aging and the identity crisis that comes with it is dismissed too often. And that might explain why by the time we get here, it hits us so hard and why we didn't even see it coming. The oblivion and omission are how we all end up asking ourselves, how did I get here? And feeling like a big change has happened to us suddenly, when it didn't happen suddenly at all. It's been years in the making. The most common question on the lips is therefore, how did I get here? Even with those traversing the ages between 40 and 55. In my coaching career, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of individuals by now, from C-suite executives and leading teams at Nike, Estee Lauder, Salesforce, SAP, and Twitter, to startup founders, trial lawyers, television stars, athletes, models, surgeons, and entrepreneurs, all nearing middle age. And guess what? Each one of them faced with that question. How did I get here? And also, what do I do now? These superstars usually appear in my practice after some wake-up call, some big triggering event, and that'll vary from a run-of-the-mill marriage or career stagnation event to much more epic midlife crisis events. We're going to bring you the spectrum here through our callers' questions, and we hope you'll tune in to hear how anyone can take a traumatic moment, a real challenge, and transform it into a triumph by talking about that which dare not speak its name. We're all growing up here. The cliche is that people faced with the onset of middle age will try running away from it by doing something impetuous like dyeing their hair, buying a motorcycle, sexting with strangers, or burning their careers to the ground. Indeed, I have certainly witnessed my clients' midlife crises to include polyamory, ayahuasca, younger men, enlightenment, infidelity, Botox, or just telling the boss once and for all where she can shove her job. But the point is that most of us will initially really just be in a phase that looks like anger or denial, the beginning phases of any stage or process of grief. And when this happens, we're going to exert an inordinate amount of energy denying what's happening, lying about what's happening, not talking about what's happening. Just think for a second. When was the last time you heard somebody say perimenopause at a dinner table? And yet, it's all around you. 1 billion people going through it right now on the planet. So we'd rather numb things and ignore them, and then in turn use kicking and screaming as our defense mechanism to prove to the world that even though aging is a thing for other humans, you will not go. And that's what makes this period a crisis. It's not the change itself, it's the resistance against the change. That, of course, analogy stretches very well to all other forms of change. Well, I think it's high time we talked about it. If anybody did talk about it, they would quickly learn that, again, it's not the awareness of looming death that's freaking midlifers out. It's that a form of themselves is dying. At least a version of themselves is dying. What we're lamenting is the loss of an identity. If you're amongst those who wonder how we ended up here and what to do next, there is a way out. There is. And that's what this midlife mini-series is dedicated to. I believe that if I tell you what it is that you're dealing with, which is a form of death, you're parting, you're saying goodbye to an identity that has been an old friend but has to go now, you will know what to expect and you will be ready, prepared, and even eager for the journey. This is your chance to try the road not often taken. My personal perspective has brought me to conclude that there actually is a tried and true process that can soften the midlife transition and give you guidance as you go through it. It might be radical, but it's the only one that works. My radical suggestion is that the process that'll get us through this, the framework that will guide us through this season of change, is grief. As we're dealing with the loss of an identity to which we were very, very attached, we're really only going to get through this if we're allowing ourselves to grieve, to mourn its loss as a death by going through the 5 known stages of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the psychologist who first explained that persistent traumatic grief can cause us to cycle, sometimes very quickly, through the stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This season brings you honest, well-researched, funny, and relatable episodes that all work around this framework and all borrow emotional guideposts from this framework so that together we can lay out for you the predicaments of the modern midlife crisis so that you can anticipate them and therefore meet them with the exact steps to take you through the process to the other side. If we don't manage to take that darkness away, at very least, what we will be doing is walking alongside you and showing you that none of us is doing this alone.
Hey superstars, it's Natalie, Community Director for Coach Karen. I wanted to let you know that we have a new mastermind launching next month, Enthusiasm Academy. This coaching track offers busy entrepreneurs and overwhelmed C-suite leaders who are determined to rise a powerful, streamlined program that includes one-on-one executive coaching with Coach Karen, peer advisory sessions, a wide range of expert speakers, robust mindset and business tools, and a powerful network. This is what Coach Karen's calling a program for beasts in beast mode. Applications are open right now on KarenEldad.com/Enthusiasm Academy.
Soon you'll find that in this process of transition, something else starts to bubble up from within. Something much bigger than an ending. Something that looks much more like a new beginning. It might start as a whisper and get increasingly louder and louder until you can't ignore it anymore. Sometimes it sounds like a voice that's asking you a specific question, and sometimes it's just a feeling that leaves you wondering, is that it? Is that all there is? Am I done evolving? Am I finished with adventures? Have I already reached the peak of my contribution? If you know what I'm talking about, then get started right here and start heading towards the new beginning right now, into turning those questions into answers. And if not, I invite you to take some time reflecting on the following 5 questions as your opener into this Midlife series. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to have the answers, but instead just allow yourself to be curious and open to the questions themselves. Number 1, why am I stuck where I'm stuck? We all have blind spots, friends. Everybody does. That's why coaching is so invaluable. And going to the next level is primarily about identifying where are the blind spots still looming. Ask yourself, what habits, patterns, or beliefs are dragging me down and against this change rather than with this change? Midlife is a very important time to finally recognize your limiting patterns. And we all have them, so don't shame yourself for being human. And just becoming aware will stop that sabotage in its tracks. Question 2, what boundaries do I need to rethink? This is one that I wrestled with the most because people-pleasing was the very essence of the dragon I slayed on my way to the other side of the midlife crisis. Just ask yourself, what are you still tolerating? What in its tolerance is keeping you stuck and behind? Where do you stay quiet when you really have something to say? Where are you not pursuing something when you really want to pursue it? And why? When do you give your time and resent it? What behaviors are you accepting over and over from others? What do you want to kill? Number 3, what is really important to me? Using your values to make decisions about what you spend your time, money, and energy on is a foolproof route to fulfillment. We go wrong when we spend our precious resources on what's important to other people and not to ourselves. So really, take a look and start thinking about what matters to you and how you can live more deliberately with focusing those things in all your areas of life. Number 4, a critical question to start asking also is, who do I want to be next? Who do you want to be at 50? Who do you want to be at 60? How celebratory and revelatory do you want to be at 90? Asking yourself these questions now will help you very much to guide your post today. Julia Child is one of the midlife superstars I'm going to talk about in this series as one of my midlife heroes. And her midlife crisis pivoted her into a new career that, even though it started in her very late 40s, lasted for 42 more years. That is a lot of time. So asking yourself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? What do I want to become? Where am I going with this? Is a really important question. And finally, how can I keep evolving? Hold your absolutes tightly so that there's always room to grow, change, and learn. Lightly, not tightly. Hold your absolutes lightly. We don't know what we don't know. Remember, that's the first and most fundamental of my Coach Karen tracks. If you understand that, you will defy stereotypes, you will defy knowledge, you will try new things, you will change your mind, and you will have fun. And there's no way to live other than from this state. It might be a radical feeling to begin to focus on yourself this way and to ask such navel-gazing questions, especially if you haven't thought about these things before. But now is a great time to start, and your future self will thank you. The unexamined life really isn't worth living, and especially not at this height of your life. So here's the deal. You're going to have to think about these things. And more than anything, midlife is a time of reckoning because we can no longer deny the truth. We can no longer keep up the facades, the keeping up with the Joneses, the looking like we've got our shit together. The shit is getting real. And if this is resonating with you, you already know, and you're already setting off onto a new, uncharted, but very exciting course. To take you through these musings further, to ask more questions and answer more questions, I invite you to dive into the entire series that we have prepared for you. You're about to hear about the massive life-changing events of superstars who chose triumph over tragedy and of superstars who were honest enough and courageous enough to call in and ask about how to do this next. The format of the Coached podcast is a call-in show, my tribute to the most wonderful radio psychiatrist of all time, fictitious though he may be, Frasier, who I've just shared, is coming back, apparently, with a reboot of the show. We have incredible co-hosts like health and wellness coach Christopher Chandler. We have Jade Shepard, the founder of the Scarlet Society and other big businesses to talk about dynamo and superstar pivots in midlife. And we have the amazing Greg Scheinman, aka the Midlife Male, to talk about maximizing the power and strength and physical abilities that we have in midlife. And we have incredible stories to share with you as well. I hope you're going to tune in for all of them. As always, if you love what you hear, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and subscribe. You'll love the entire mini-series. And my goal ultimately is to serve your life and to help you find clarity and success faster than you could ever achieve alone. When it comes to the midlife crisis, we're also lone wolves out here with, again, still very few people talking about this out loud. So join this out loud discussion. That's what this is all about. Thank you for being here and enjoy the season. I wish you a really good journey.
Thank you for joining Coach Karen. Would you like to have your questions answered on a future episode? Visit KarenEldad.com. KEREN Eldad.com and tell us about your challenge or issue. Until next time, live with enthusiasm.